Do you ever feel like everything that you do to try to solve your problems just fails completely or even makes it worse? Well, you're not alone. I'm Dr. Matthew Thornton, and I want to teach you a concept that may help you get unstuck from this pattern of repetitive problems that you're having in your life. Now, the simple idea that I want to teach you today is to be able to identify your attempted solutions to your problem. Because oftentimes it is the things that we're trying to do to solve our problems that actually maintain them, or in some cases make them worse. Now, let me give you an example of this. Say you're stressed at work and you come home in the evening and the thing you want to do to try to unwind is have a drink. And that next morning when you get up, you haven't rested well and you're tired and you're not feeling yourself. And so the next day at work, what happens? You fall a little bit further behind, you get even more stressed. That's just an example of an attempted solution to a problem that actually can end up making it worse. And those kind of things happen over and over again. It's sort of human nature. And so I want to talk with you through this idea of how do we identify our attempted solutions and then do something different to try to solve our problems that maybe isn't in that same sort of theme. But the first thing I would want you to do is to slow down. Oftentimes in our anxiousness or our stress, our inability to kind of see the things that we're doing that are maintaining the problem can kind of kick in for us. And so take a breath is the first step and really slow down. That in of itself may be something different for you. So the next thing I want you to do is really identify what is the problem that you're trying to solve. And it can be all kinds of things from depression, anxiety, stress, conflict in relationships. Let me give you an example. What if you're parenting a teenager? And that in of itself can be stressful, anxiety producing, and they're going through a lot of changes. A lot of times the problems and difficulties in our life happen around transitions and changes, whether it be death or loss. And oftentimes it can be something great like having a baby, getting married, or launching a child. And adolescence, teenage years is really about that transition from childhood into adulthood. And there's so much struggle that goes along with that for the kid, but also for the family and for the parents as well. So let's take that as an example. Maybe you've got a teen that you're worried about and they don't want to talk to you, but you really want to talk with them and kind of see how is their life going? What's happening with them? Maybe you're worried that they're down or depressed, but you really don't know because they're not talking to you. And so start to think through what are the things that you're doing to try to talk with your child. Maybe the first thing you do when they get home from school is ask about their day. And so that may be one of your attempted solutions. So you ask about their day, but you may be getting one-word answers, or they just go straight to their room. They don't want to talk to you, or they just kind of shut down when you start to ask how they're doing or how their day was. So maybe you try a different tactic. Maybe you ask about their friends. What's going on with them? How is so-and-so doing? So that's the next attempted solution, is to ask about friends. Writing is terrible, but that's okay if you're getting the point. But nothing's coming there either. They don't want to talk about that. They just say you don't understand. All kinds of things may come out. They may actually get more frustrated. And so you may change your tactic again. You may say, well, I'll ask them about maybe activities they're involved in. Maybe they're in band, or they're in sports, or they're in this club or that. Maybe they've got this going on. So you ask about activities. So at this point, they're super frustrated, you're getting frustrated, they pop off of you, and next thing you know, they're grounded and they're not talking to you for a couple of days. And that's a scenario that happens pretty commonly. And oftentimes parents would come in to talk with me and they'll say, I've done everything that I can to try to talk with my child and I can't get them to talk with me. But what I want you to do is do what we said first. Let's slow down and let's identify what the themes are with what we're doing here. So what are you seeing right off the bat? We ask. And so everything that we're doing in terms of our attempted solutions is trying to pull that information out of our child. And so what I would recommend when I started out in my career was to do a 180-degree turn from that. Completely turn your tactics around in terms of what you're trying to do in terms of your attempted solutions. That can be super hard to do, especially in this case where you're a parent that's worried about your teen. And so what I would recommend you do is to start thinking about what are other ways or alternatives to spending time or maybe creating opportunities for your child to talk with you. So in this case, we're asking. What if we start with offering? What if we start with an offer of some sort? And what I mean by offer is not necessarily a gift or anything like that, but offering some information about what's happening in your life or what's going on with the family, something that they may need to know. Let's start with that kind of introduction into a conversation instead of asking for something first. We oftentimes jump in to want to pull information out and don't stop and say, hey, this is what's going on with me, or this is what's happening, or this is something that you might need to know. So start with tweaking the conversation a little bit in terms of how you're entering into that conversation by offering instead of asking. The other thing I might recommend is to create opportunities for conversations to happen, but stop just short of asking for that. Now, you know your child better than I do. What are things that they like? Maybe they like smoothies or French fries or whatever, sort of activity or something that you know that they like. Ask them to go along with you for that. Come along with me. Let's go pick up a smoothie. Let's go do this. And you get them in the car, walking down the street, on the bus or subway, and you have an opportunity that you've created, but you don't pull it out of them. You don't ask those questions. You just kind of have those space for them to talk if they want to. Now, one of the things I would recommend in this situation is when you recognize in yourself that you're starting down the road of one of these attempted solutions, that you stop yourself short. So if you go about asking, well, tell me about your day, how was things? Just stop yourself in that moment and tell them, hey, I'm sorry, I know you don't want to talk about that right now. We don't have to. And you leave it at that. Be silent after that. So you ask the question, but you've stopped yourself. Be silent, create that space. That offer is on the table for them to talk, create that space, see what happens then. Now, the cool thing about it is you're applying a principle. You're applying a technique of identifying your attempted solutions. And you can get creative in what that looks like. You may want to do a 180-degree turn from what you've been doing, or you may just want to change up slightly the tactics that you've been using to solve that particular problem. The thing that I want you to remember is to first slow down, identify the problem that you're wanting to solve, and see if there's themes to the types of solutions that you're creating. Now, this is not going to be magic. It's not going to happen overnight. A lot of times these kind of repetitive patterns, they're easy for us to fall back into. So you may have a great conversation with your child, and the very next day, what do? You ask how their day went. You ask how their friends are. You ask about their activities. You do the same sort of pattern and you get that same sort of result. So it's not going to be overnight sort of thing, but it kind of gives you a pathway you can go that's a little different than the same old solutions that keep failing over and over again. And you can apply this in all different kinds of context and with all kinds of problems. Now, if you're a mental health professional and you want to know more about this particular model and approach, it comes from a model called MRI brief therapy, a problem-focused brief therapy. It's developed by John Weekland, Paul Votzlovic, Richard Fish at the Mental Research Institute in Palo Alto, California. So check out that approach if you're interested in learning more about brief therapy. If you're someone that is struggling with a mental health concern, I would ask for you to reach out for help. Oftentimes, our attempted solution is to just go at it alone, and reaching out to a counselor that would walk you through a process like this that would be tailored specifically to what your needs are and what problems you're facing right now may be the difference that needs to happen in your life as well. So please reach out if you're dealing with a mental health concern to a counselor. Again, I'm Dr. Matthew Thornton. I hope that this has been helpful in terms of helping you get unstuck from those persistent problems in your life. Now go out and make a difference.